Thank you so much, Mr. Pratap, for joining us on this podcast at Live. I welcome you, Mr. Pratap. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Over the last 3 decades, my journey has really been about one transformation, and that is from procurement as a transactional function to procurement as a strategic business lever. I started with very operational roles in the beginning of my career and gradually moved into strategic leadership positions. And through this journey, one thing became very clear: procurement is not about just buying material. When done right, it becomes a very powerful lever that improves cost, strengthens quality, reduces risk, releases working capital, and ultimately drives business growth. And I have seen that the real value does not come from mere negotiating the prices. It comes from building systems, strong supplier partnerships, planning discipline, and structured decision making across different teams. So I am really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving this fantastic intro into procurement and supply chain. Sir, you have spent decades, kind of evolving, procurement, and you told from a transactional function into a strategic lever. First of all, would like to understand what differentiates, organizations that use procurement for cost control versus those who use it for competitive advantage.
That's a great question. And it connects directly to what I mentioned earlier: the shift from procurement as a cost control function to a strategic business lever. Organizations that focus only on cost control treat procurement as a transactional activity. The focus is mainly on price negotiations, placing orders, short term savings, and typically procurement is involved very, very late. But organizations that use procurement strategically bring it in much earlier, at the design stage, at the sourcing stage, even during make or buy decisions. That is where the real value gets created. For example, in VAVE initiatives, value analysis, value engineering, you are not just negotiating costs, you are redesigning materials, optimizing specifications, improving processes, and eliminating waste. That's how companies achieve sustainable cost reductions, sometimes even 8 to 12%, without compromising on quality. So, in simple terms, cost focused procurement will ask, how do I buy cheaper? Whereas strategic procurement asks, how do I make the business stronger? And that is the real shift that changes everything.
This is so nicely explained, sir, basically. Do you think, sir, in India, like specifically talking from an Indian, perspective, there's a long way to go in terms of, a lot of organization treating procurement as a strategic function rather than just a cost lever?
Yes, yes, 100%. There are many organizations still lagging behind.
And sir, you have kind of, built and managed a very large supplier base as well, with the structured systems like QCDR. So how should leaders rethink suppliers as ecosystem partners today?
I believe the term vendor management itself is too narrow today. Earlier, suppliers were treated as external parties. You place an order, they supply, and that's it. But in today's environment, it's very difficult to manage that way. We have disruptions, uncertainty, and supply risk. So suppliers are no longer just vendors. They are the ecosystem partners. When you manage a large supply base, like 500 plus suppliers, you need a very structured framework like QCDR, that is quality, cost, delivery, and responsiveness. But the purpose of this system is not to have a control on suppliers. It is to bring in transparency and drive continuous improvement. Also, not all supplies should be treated the same. Generally, this is the mistake many corporates do. You must segment them. Strategic suppliers need deeper engagement, regular reviews, joint planning, capacity alignment, and risk sharing. When suppliers understand your growth plans, they will align themselves better. And when they grow with you, your supply chain becomes stronger. So instead of asking, did the supplier deliver? We should be asking, how do we grow together? Because today, strong supply relationships are not optional. They are a competitive advantage. If we decide to grow together, if we take them with us, then that's a strategic advantage.
Yes. And you're absolutely right, sir. We have seen a lot of organization investing a lot of capital also to, kind of make their suppliers more capable. I've also seen a lot of these senior executives in the company traveling together with the supplier to events and all
Right,
these
right.
conferences.
Having vendor meets,
Yes.
deploying teams to help suppliers improve the processes, systems, train them.
Mm.
That's
And
right.
so also there's something called JIT. I think we'd like to know what is JIT also. And you have implemented JIT and improved inventory turnovers, and have improved inventory turnover significantly. Does JIT still hold strong today?
JIT is still relevant, but blind JIT is very risky. Just in time supplies. JIT will help you improve the flow, definitely. It will help you to reduce the inventory and release working capital as well. In one of my experiences, we improved inventory turnover from around 18 inventory turnover ratio to 30. That had a direct impact on cash flow. But today, we are operating in a very, very different environment. There are disruptions, lead time uncertainty, global dependencies. So we cannot apply just JIT blindly everywhere. I strongly believe the future is a hybrid model. We have to use JIT where supply is stable, but build buffers where risk is high. For example, local suppliers, there is a predictable demand. JIT works very well, but imported or single source items need safety stock. So the idea is very simple. Balance efficiency with resilience. Because if you focus only on efficiency, you become fragile. And if you focus only on buffers, you become inefficient. So we have to strike a right balance. And that is the key to success.
Right. And you've also scaled supply chain operations across multiple plants, sir. So what are the biggest challenges that are involved while doing this?
Biggest challenge is consistency. Different plants would like to operate in different ways, different processes, different suppliers, different decisions, and that creates inefficiencies across multiple plants in the same organization. So the solution is standardize the backbone, not everything, but the critical elements like SOPs, structured operational procedures, supplier evaluation systems, key performance indicators, and review mechanisms. When these are standardized, leadership will get a visibility and decisions become more structured. But at the same time, you should not kill the local agility. That means plants need flexibility for execution, problem solving, and responsiveness. So the right approach is centralized standards and decentralized execution. That is how you should scale effectively.
Centralize standards and decentralize execution.
Execution. So execution, which you should leave it to the plants.
And how should organizations rethink supply chain risk today, sir?
Traditionally, companies react after problems happen. But today, that approach is too costly. We need predictive risk management. One powerful concept is pre-mortem thinking. Instead of asking, why did this fail, which is a very reactive questioning or reactive model, we should be asking, if this fails in future, what could be the reasons? And that helps identify risk very early. The next step is tracking leading indicators to mitigate those risks which we have already identified, like supplier delays, capacity issues, quality drifts, price volatility, logistics challenges. If you track these regularly, you can act early. And also, risk is not just procurement's responsibility. It must be a cross-functional approach because supply chain risk is a business risk. The goal is not to eliminate risk. The goal is to see it early and respond intelligently so that we are able to mitigate the risk.
And now, sir, a lot of things have been talked around AI in supply chain and procurement as well. So how do you see AI and digital technology shaping supply chains in the near future?
Definitely. Technology is definitely transforming supply chains. AI is helping in forecasting, planning, inventory optimization, and giving a better visibility. It is enabling faster and better decisions. But here is the reality. Many companies invest in tools but don't give value, don't get value. Why? Because they ignore the basics. Poor data, weak processes, lack of discipline. So even the best tools will not deliver the right results. That is my experience. In my view, companies are over investing in dashboards and under investing in data quality, process discipline, and team capability. Technology is a multiplier, if we see, but only when the foundation is strong. Otherwise, it becomes an expensive display system.
That is so nicely explained, sir. And now we'll have a rapid fire round, sir. You have to answer that in single sentences. The first one is that one metric to obsess over.
That is on time in full because it reflects true customer commitment.
Resilience for cost or resilience.
Resilience first, but it has to be intelligently managed.
And biggest supplier mistake.
Treating all suppliers the same and engaging only when there are problems reactively.
Overhyped versus underutilized.
Underutilized.
And now at last, sir, what is that one message that you would like to leave with the leaders?
If I have to leave one message, it would be the real transformation happens when we move from procurement as a transactional function put procurement as a strategic business lever, because supply chain is no longer a support function as we used to see it conventionally. It is a strategic capability of the organization. Organizations that build strong systems, strong supplier partnerships, and disciplined execution will not only control cost better, but they will be able to grow faster, respond quicker to the customers, and compete stronger in the marketplace.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on this podcast and sharing these insights. And must say that you have kind of tackled all the topics in such a succinct way and in such a simple way that I think anybody, even if not from procurement or supply chain, maybe from different domains of business, will be able to understand from the core of the discussion over here. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us, and extremely grateful to be hosting you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Rushikesh. Thanks for inviting me.